Episodes of Palette Swap are suggested by viewers like you. If there's a character you'd like me to analyze, let me know in the comment section down below. Good morrow everyone, Silvershire here, and welcome to episode 10 of Palette Swap, where I rank the costumes and character designs of your favorite fighting games. And by your favorite fighting games, I mean my favorite fighting games, and by my favorite fighting games, I mean Soulcalibur. To celebrate the big 1-0, we're covering not one, but two characters. For the first half of the video, we'll be discussing the guy who replaced Hwang and then got replaced by Hwang, Yun-Seong. And after that, we'll be taking a look at the other Last Airbender, Talim. Timestamp is on screen if you want to skip to her. But before we begin our analysis, here's a quick refresher course on who Yun-Seong is and what we should be looking for in his character designs. Growing up, Yun-Seong idolized the swordsmanship of his fellow Sungdojang student Hwang Sung-young. For more about him, check out episode 5 of this series. When Yun-Seong was old enough, he challenged Hwang to a duel, to which the famous warrior replied, "No, dude, are you crazy? There's a war going on, I have stuff to do." After some introspection, Yun-Seong realized that he had been thinking selfishly, and that he should be doing his part to help his country in its time of need. So he set out to accomplish what Hwang had failed to do years ago, find the legendary Sword of Salvation, Soul Edge. With it, he could defend Korea against any threat, and maybe impress Hwang in the process. But what he didn't know was that Hwang had abandoned the quest because he learned of Soul Edge's true nature. It's an evil blade, cursed to bring doom and destruction to any who dare claim it. Yun-Seong's Soulcalibur II 1P is seemingly inspired by the doboks that practitioners of Korean martial arts like Taekwondo wear, which is fitting since he uses a lot of Taekwondo kicks in addition to his sword swings. It's much more revealing than a traditional dobok, making him seem youthful and a bit rebellious. He has the same spiky hairstyle as Hwang, but in a fiery red, which reflects his hot-headed personality. It also implies that he cares about his look since it's not his natural color. Speaking of color, his palette does a lot with a little. The stark contrast between white, black, and orange is really striking, and the thick, dark lines help to break up his silhouette, making his actions more easily readable. I wasn't expecting to give this costume such a high score because it doesn't stick out in my mind as anything special, but I have no complaints. 9 out of 10. His 2P is more reminiscent of Hwang, both in its colors and in its traditional aesthetic. The bottom half works well, but I'm not really a fan of the extreme crop top thing he has going on. I think it would look a lot better if it was either extended to cover up more of his chest, or if the sleeves were removed and it was simply a decorative neck piece. This middle ground makes it seem like part of his top is missing, and if done purposefully that could actually make for an interesting design, like he modified his stuffy uniform to better fit his personal taste, but I don't think that's what they were going for. His hair is different as well, and while I appreciate that they shook things up for his 2P, it's not as unique or eye-catching as his usual look. This still isn't bad though, 5 out of 10. As I mentioned in the Hwang episode, Soulcalibur III is the only game to include both him and Yun-Seong, so it was important for the artists to differentiate them. While Hwang's 1P is reserved and traditional, Yun-Seong's is flashy and has a more modern fashion sense. That said, the outfit still feels appropriate for a historical setting. I mean, it's not like he has big fuzzy cat paws or anything. Psst, that was foreshadowing. His palette is now green and purple, which combined with his orange hair gives him a visually appealing triadic color scheme. But ultimately, this costume is kinda basic. It's just a jacket and shorts and sandals, and no amount of patterns can change that. 6 out of 10. His 2P once again takes inspiration from modern martial arts uniforms, now more so resembling a Japanese gi than a Korean dobok. Even though a slightly ripped gi is the most cliché and overused design in all of fighting games, the colors and insignias of Yun-Seong's help it stand out. I especially like that his pants have the same upside-down heart thing as his Soulcalibur II 1P. It's always neat to see a recurring motif pop up across different costumes. There are also flames on his shoulders, which again ties into his fiery personality. 6 out of 10. Yun-Seong apparently did a lot of working out after Soulcalibur III and wanted to show it off, because his Soulcalibur IV 1P is totally bare-chested. Shirtless designs run the risk of looking plain or boring since there's not as much going on, so I appreciate that they gave him a necklace and a bunch of tattoos to keep his upper half interesting. The symbol on his biceps is an abstracted depiction of the Korean flag, which is a super cool detail. He has big, baggy pants that emphasize the movement of his legs, which is perfect for a character who does so much kicking. My main problem with this costume is his bandana. Don't get me wrong, it looks good, but it covers up his most iconic feature. I would have preferred if he took a page out of Hwang's book and wore it like a headband, as that would have both shown off his hair and created a strong contrast between the orange and green. We get a little bit of that as is, because he has some hair hanging out from the sides, but it's not very noticeable. Another 6 out of 10. His 2P goes for a traditional look, and therefore feels like a more mature, serious version of Yun-Seong. Its silhouette is nearly identical to Huang's, and its two central images, namely a serpentine dragon and a yin-yang, are long-standing symbols of many East Asian cultures. The little bits of... actually, I don't know what this is. Fur? Feathers? Little bits of fluffy stuff give it some unique flair and complement the texture of his hair. The palette is quite desaturated, but that works well for this design, and there's still plenty of value contrast. This costume may not communicate Yun-Seong's personality as well as his others, but makes up for that with how unique it is. Plus, it's just cool. I mean, come on, there's a giant gold dragon on his chest. 8 out of 10. Talim was raised as a priestess in the Filipino village of the wind deity. When a European colonist arrived with what he claimed was a vitality charm, her connection to the spirits let her recognize it for what it truly was, a shard of the cursed sword's soul edge. How many of those are floating around anyway? Seems like everyone and their bird finds a shard of soul edge at some point. Anyway, she knew that this shard and others like it posed a threat to the world's natural balance, and was determined to return them to their rightful place. The village elders urged her not to leave, fearing that the cruelty of the outside world could corrupt the purity of their priestess, but the wind had called her, and it was her duty to answer. Talim's Soulcalibur II 1P is... wait, hold on a second, my spine hurts just from looking at that picture. There we go, that's better. Her Soulcalibur II 1P is simple but effective. Her clothes are pretty plain, but she has a lot of ornate jewelry as befits a priestess, including this necklace with a crescent and dot design that's speculated to have been based on Pac-Man. This is the symbol of the village of the wind deity, and it can also be seen on the windmill stage, which is a neat connection. She has these hollow poofy sleeve things, and they don't make a lot of sense, but they give her a unique silhouette and have a tendency to catch the wind. Her signature pigtails are a stereotypically childish hairstyle, which is perfect for the series' youngest human character. White is a great choice for her main color, because it's associated with both innocence and wind. I don't think the asymmetry of her leg wraps is very fitting though, and I'd like some sort of pattern to break up the large sections of white, particularly on her shorts. Something as simple as a stripe on the side would go a long way. 6 out of 10. I don't have a ton to say about her alternate costumes from this game, but not because they're bad. Her 2P is a dainty, graceful design. The shape of her hair ribbons and shirt evoke flower petals, and the monochromatic pink color scheme is pretty and cheerful. The downside is that it doesn't feel unique to Talim in any way. In fact, if I didn't know better, I would probably guess that this belongs to Xianghua, as it has a strong similarity to her Soulcalibur IV 2P. 7 out of 10. Her 3P, on the other hand, is very unique. While none of Talim's costumes are particularly faithful to Filipino fashion of the time, this one does tap into some similar aesthetics. Pac-Man is front and center, closely tying this outfit to the village of the wind deity, and it uses a lot of loose, billowing fabric that flows in the wind. 7 out of 10. Her Soulcalibur III 1P is more complex, incorporating a butterfly theme and giving her big, blousy pants. Talim's costumes often employ round-shaped language to communicate that she's gentle and friendly, which is especially evident in this design. It also creates a strong contrast with her sharp, triangular tonfas, which are what make her dangerous. Well, that and her ability to summon cataclysmic forces of nature on a whim. The best part of this costume is the addition of red ribbons that flow in the breeze and create arcs to accentuate her acrobatic attacks. This is a brilliant inclusion, and if you ask me, Talim should never be without them. It's a shame that she's not wearing white anymore, because purity is a huge part of her character, but sky blue also makes sense for someone who praises the wind. 8 out of 10. Her 2P is much more similar to her old 1P. The biggest difference is that she now has a hat, and Talim fans seem to be pretty split on it, but I like it. It's a unique accessory that is instantly recognizable as Talim's, and the elaborate decoration reinforces the idea that she's a priestess. This outfit goes even harder on the asymmetry, which I still don't think is fitting, and the white is more of an off-white or cream, which removes the connotation of purity. You could argue that this represents a loss of innocence now that she's been adventuring for a while, but she's back to pure white in the next game, so I doubt that was intentional. Also, without the Pac-Man necklace and other jewelry, it's kind of plain. 5 out of 10. Her Soulcalibur IV 1P combines elements of her Soulcalibur II 1P, Soulcalibur III 1P, and Soulcalibur III 2P. Her pants are now translucent, so it's possible they're meant to be made of piña, a type of luxurious Filipino fabric derived from pineapple leaves. But even ignoring the cultural reference, sheer white fabric does a good job of tapping into a windy aesthetic. Plus, it's a unique look. That said, she should probably be wearing a little more underneath considering she's only 15. Her palette is white, red, and green once again, but the colors aren't very spread out. There's not much red on her top half and not much green on her bottom half. Her previous costumes felt more balanced and cohesive in this regard. Also, the background of her necklace is now green instead of red, so the gold doesn't stand out as much. Still, it's an 8 out of 10. Her 2P is a weird one. In a vacuum, I like this design. It has a very clear theme, it's detailed without being cluttered, the warm, light colors give it happy vibes, and the teal accents pop without looking out of place. But as soon as you put it in context, it just doesn't make sense. First of all, it looks way too modern. Soulcalibur characters don't have to be historically accurate by any means, and the series is full of anachronisms, but the costumes are usually vaguely old-timey enough not to break my suspension of disbelief. But this looks like it was plucked straight out of the 21st century, mainly due to the admittedly adorable kitten paw motif. Speaking of which, what does Talim have to do with cats? She's always been associated with flying creatures. It's certainly unique, which is worth something, but I can't go above a 5 out of 10. Her Soulcalibur VI design is mostly based on her Soulcalibur II 1P, but with a few additions from her other costumes. It also gives her an unnecessarily complicated jacket. It has multicolored cuffs and lapels, all sorts of stripes and straps, holes for the shoulders and back, a hoop that serves no purpose. It's way too busy. There's a lot of black on her palette too, which doesn't feel like Talim. 6 out of 10. Soulcalibur VI doesn't have any alternate... You know what, you guys know the drill by now, I don't need to say that every episode. All of Talim's alternate colors are references to her older designs. Her color 2 is blue like her Soulcalibur III 1P. It's fine, but it's a tad too similar to her default color. I'd prefer if the red sections were orange or purple or something, just to make it more distinct. 6 out of 10. Her color 3 is pink like her Soulcalibur II 2P. It looks nice. 7 out of 10. Lastly, her color 4 is yellow with platinum blonde hair and no hat, just like her Soulcalibur IV 2P. I like how different this is from the other options, but I don't think the palette applies to this costume very well. 5 out of 10. And with that, we have ranked every single Yun-Seong and Talim costume. Their designs do a great job of showcasing their personalities, but aesthetically speaking, I'm sort of lukewarm on them. Well, that's just my opinion, so what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below if you agree or disagree with any of my rankings. Also, let me know which character you'd like to see next. For episode 11, we'll be discussing Ryu and Ken from Street Fighter, as requested by King Gamer Siam. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, I bid thee farewell.